Hi, this is Tanya Sheridan at andallsassiness.com, and today I'm going to do the second video with you of my Sassy Perpetual calendar. So if you haven't watched the first one, the one that I recently posted is of January and February, and today's will be of March and April. So before we get started, I wanted to go over some of the tools that you might want to grab. If you don't have them, you can just pause this video. But this time you're going to really want to use the thin 3D foam dots. We have both the bigger dots as well as the smaller dots. And those come in thin or thick. Either one would work, but you need both sizes for this project. You're going to use the wide version of the thin foam tape. You're going to need your piercing tool, your scissors, whatever your adhesive of choice is. You could also use glue dots. That's totally up to you. And then some special things that I use. I'm going to use the Tombow liquid glue, the blue one. That is my favorite. I'm going to use the Stickles diamond version, which is by Ranger. If you have that. That of course is optional, but it does add a lot of flair. And then I'm going to use 3 of our shimmer brushes. So I'm going to use the clear, the Evergreen, and the gold. And of course these are optional, but I think that they add lots of extra flair. So if you watched yesterday's video or the video with January and February, I talked about changing the size of the calendar and making it work for you. So I wanted to show you a second option. So yesterday I talked about you could do just a 5x5 version and do an album just like that, or you could use that on a 12x12 scrapbook page or whatever the case may be. The 5x5 would be matted to a 6x6. Sorry, I should have said that first. So today I have a different idea for you, and that is using our 6x8 album. So I have pre-made just a standard page that's that size. I pulled the colors of the Evergreen glitter paper to use as my base, and then I pulled this gold foil to use as my accents. So again, I'm going to use a 5x5 piece of White Daisy cardstock, which mirrors this very closely. This space here is 5x5 1/4. And so this piece that we're going to create together would go just like that. And then you could put it in a 6x8 album, which looks like this. So a couple of my thoughts would be, you could still use it as the calendar, but maybe have, in a book form. Maybe you want to jot down, memories from the month, anything that you would like. But I had a couple people that really, really liked the calendar pieces and wanted to do them in different forms. So I'm going to actually move this page out of the camera viewpoint, and we're just going to work with this because that is what you have in your kit. Now, if you're watching this and you haven't purchased the kit, you can go to andallsassiness.com and you have 2 options. You can purchase this just with the pieces for each month, or you can purchase it with the entire calendar, which includes 14 of the blank pages with the numbers and a wooden base. So that is an option for you at andallsassiness.com. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do on this one is we're actually going to do reverse of what we did before. So we are going to use the Evergreen and the gold shimmer brushes. And I want to do this beforehand because I don't want to get this on my title piece. That is my concern. So I am just going to lightly or heavily, I have a very juicy brush it looks like, which is okay. If you move it too fast, then you get kind of movement in your splattering. So you don't want to do it too fast. And then I'm also going to use the gold. And I have a tendency to go faster than I probably should. The gold is not coming out quite as fast. Ooh, there we go. There we go. So there is some gold there. If you're having a hard time getting it to start, just do a little dollop and squeeze it off to the side, and then you can also pull from that puddle. So I'm going to pick up my piece for just a second. I'm going to use my baby wipe and wash down my Versamat to pick up that splatter. If you have the all-purpose mat, that works awesome too for glittering and wiping down. But the Versamat works very nicely. Okay, so now we're going to bring over this piece, and it's going to take a second to dry, and that's okay. Then what we're going to do is, while this is drying, we're going to go ahead and build our word March. So I did not want the March, that was the piece that I was showing you, I did not want to get the splattering on. So that's partially why I moved that out. Now these pieces in this little bag, they are incredibly fragile. Just as a word of warning, if you tear one, just simply shoot me an email. My email is inallsassiness@gmail.com, so it's the same thing as my blog and my website. I'm putting my shamrocks up here. But just let me know what piece that you tore, and I'll be more than happy to recut it for you. So I am just going to use my adhesive runner. Oops, see how you almost have to hold it down as you go. And do the word March. Now this is cut with our holographic paper, which is absolutely gorgeous. It is so pretty, especially when it catches the light. And up against the evergreen and the gold, it really pulls the pieces together. Okay, so I'm going to put that down with my fingers. And while I'm on this piece, I'm going to go ahead and flip it. And I'm going to put my foam tape on the back because that piece is popped up. And I am incredibly generous with my foam tape. I know that some of you don't like using a ton of foam tape, but I do. And actually that piece is a little bit narrower, so I'm going to pull out the narrow foam tape and put it there just so I don't have to cut the excess off. Okay. So that is my title piece, and I'm actually just going to kind of set it up. I'll just stick it right there for right now. Okay, so now we're going to go and we're going to build this part here. So in your second bag, your little snack bag, if you will, you're going to find all of the strips. Now you'll notice that this is the only calendar page, I believe, that doesn't have anything at the bottom. And I tried to stay consistent throughout the entire calendar, but because I have these angled here, it looks kind of weird to go straight at the bottom. So that was my reasoning. You could, of course, take one of these layers off if you wanted to, and you could do it that way. So just like I did in the January and the February, all of these pieces are cut a little bit long so that you can get them at the angle that you desire here and then adhere them down. So before I actually start, I'm not gonna glue down the shamrocks. I'm just gonna lay them into position to kind of create an angle. And I'm going to slide this down just a little bit so you can see better. Don't want it to reflect off of that banner there. Okay, so here is the top one. This one is closer to the upper right hand corner. And it's going to go just about like that. You can play with it, of course, however much that you want. But that's where my starting point is. So then the first piece that I am going to use is going to be this Oasis holographic paper. So I'm just going to simply flip that over. And I want to find whatever angle works for me best. So I'm going to go about there. Okay. So then the next one I'm going to do is going to be the Evergreen glitter paper. That's going to be that really, really dark green. This is absolutely gorgeous. I don't dislike green, but it's never been my favorite color until this came out. It is absolutely gorgeous. Both the julep and the evergreen. Okay, the next one is going to be the gold foil, which when I think of shamrocks and St. Patrick's Day, I always think of gold. March is an incredibly special month to me because we have our shamrock crop in Virginia, and it is literally, I enjoy it more than Christmas. Okay, this is the julep. It is my favorite crop, my signature crop, and it is like a family reunion every year. So this page is always special. Okay, then the last one is actually, I went a step too far, so we're gonna pull that back up real quick. Sorry about that. The last one is going to be this scallop. Now, you can do one of two things. You can either trim it, if you would like, or you can lay it down and then put this one on top of it. And I think that that is actually a little bit easier. That way you're not trying to cut that paper. The holographic paper cuts beautifully on everything except the trimmer. It's a little bit tricky because it's so thin. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip these little guys, and these are incredibly intricate, okay? So I'm just warning you up front. I found that the glue seemed to work the best, and my glue dried while I was chatting with you. So if you have that happen, you can use your piercing tool and run right down the barrel, and it will loosen up too much there. I'm just barely touching this. It is very, very thin. Okay. So then I'm gonna put this right up to the edge. Now, if you want to get it into position, you could always lift this top piece up and cover the edges. I'm gonna do the same thing with this one. Just put a little bit of glue on it, because otherwise it's gonna seep through and you're gonna see it. You might be able to be successful with your tape runner on this, but I was not. I tore them, so I found the glue worked the best. And I think I actually like the tail coming up better. It's cute. Okay, so then the last one is that holographic one. And I'm finding that I kind of have to hold it with my thumb to keep it from wiggling too much. And this one is going to go at the top on an angle. Just like that. Now, if you do use the glue and you get it a little bit, just wipe it off with your finger. Okay, so now I'm going to wipe off my hands because I did have glue on them. I don't want to get the glue on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sheet of my glue dots, because it's the paper, right? It's the waxy paper, and I just went over the top just to tap those down. Let's do that one again. There we go. Just to tap it down so that it doesn't ooze out. Okay, so one thing that you could do is once this dries a little bit, then get a piece of wax paper, put the wax paper on top of it, and then put something heavier on, and it'll you know, press down and it'll adhere tighter. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm going to trim off all the edges. And that's going to give me that nice, happy space. So that's the main reason for this one why I cut them larger. For the bottoms, it's just to give you that wiggle room. But when you're doing at a diagonal, you need usually larger than the original piece. Okay, so now that we have that done, we're going to come back to our title. We've already adhered the adhesive. So I'm going to pull off that film. And you can position it at whatever angle or straight. I liked it straight, personally, because all the pieces were at an angle. But that is up to you, okay? And then you have two little strips of gems. And you can adhere those wherever you like. I like to try to create a little triangle pattern if possible, just because I think it catches the eye. It doesn't have to be I don't know my triangles, but it doesn't have to be a perfect triangle. But see here, you can see that triangular motion. I'm going to put this one up at the top. And I have one extra, which could have fallen off from my original. Or maybe I only originally did 5 and I gave you guys 6. That's probably the way it is. Yeah, we're going to do that because 5 is an uneven number and I like that better. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so that is all there is to our March calendar page. Absolutely gorgeous. It really focuses and features on the holographic paper, the glitter paper, the gold foil. So truly all of the specialty papers, as well as the shimmer brushes, which really add that extra charm. You can see on this master one, I use very little gold in the shimmer brush, and this one I use more, and I really like this one better. So play with it, see how you like it. If you are using the original page, I would cover from here down when you were doing the splattering, just because if you get too much of the splatter down here, then a pen won't write over it very easily. So that is the March finished product. And now we're gonna move on to April. So for April, I cheated a little bit. So you can use your pause. Let's slide this down. So this is the April page, which I absolutely love. If you guys don't know, I live in Virginia. So we live very close to Washington, D.C. And I think that the cherry blossoms are one of the prettiest things I have ever seen. I love the cherry blossoms in D.C. Don't like the crowds. I will say that very clearly. But if you could go on a weekday, that would be ideal. Okay, so for this one, this is my base page that I created to do the 6x8 format. So I used my cardstock. This is Pixie, which is retired. At the end of this series, I will calculate the paper needed, and I will offer this as an option if you would like to do the book style. But it is Pixie. Here I have the lighter, and here I have the darker of the Pixie, and then ballerina glitter paper. So if you're not familiar with Close to My Heart's paper collection, our cardstock has two shades. So the darker color is the true color. So that would be the true Pixie. And then the back side of it is a lighter, softer version. So it gives you more opportunities. So I have the light version here and the dark version there. And then there is this strip that is supposed to go down here. So if you wanted to, you could add that however you want to make that work. So I'm going to set that aside and set this page aside. Okay, so here is the April. And like I said, I did cheat a little bit because these flowers do take some time. So you are welcome to pause the video while you make your flowers and then come back. That's perfectly fine. Before we do the flowers, I want to show you the stems, and I did cheat on those as well. So hopefully you will forgive me. But we have several stems. So we have this little guy. I'm going to put them on the white paper so they show up better, right? There's those two. I went ahead and created most of them, but I am going to show you how to create it so that you will have that option too. Okay, so I did a total of 5 pre-done, and I have one more to show you. However, I only used 1, 2, 3, well, I used 5 total, 4, 5. So you can do the branches however you want, but you do have an extra one in there for wiggle room. So to do the branch, what you're going to do is you're going to match them up kind of like a puzzle. And you can truly decide if you want the light or the dark side, just flip it over. So here you can see the dark side of the brown, and you have the green going that way, or you can flip it either way, whatever way that you want, okay? So all of mine, you can tell that I did the dark side of the brown. So you're going to find the dark side of the green if you want to follow. You can also mix them up, which is why I added an extra one so that you have that option, because that way you also have the color options. And that's what I did with some of my flowers too. So I'm just going to put adhesive on the back of the branch, the wood. So the brown branch goes on top of the green branch, so it covers the green and allows the leaves to show through. Way easier than trying to attach all these leaves, right? Okay, so we are going to look at this, and this one I'm going to set up here. Whoops, set up here for a second. So this one here is my bigger branch, and it's going to go right there. So this is one of the bigger ones. It's got like a 3 divided space. Okay. This one goes down here. So this is essentially the same branch, but it's coming from the opposite direction. And I am going to take these off the page. I'm going to cut them. Okay, I'm just laying them there for right now. Okay, so then down here, this is a smaller, and it's a onesie. So it's going to go like that. And again, you can connect it however you want. And then up here, we're actually going to have multiple branches. So we're going to put the long one which is like that. And then this little short one. Now, I cut the short one on my first one, but I'm going to leave the whole thing intact for my second one, okay? So then what you're going to want to do is just keep them in position so you don't lose your placement. And you're going to attach it however you want it to be attached. So I want the majority of this branch to be cut off, of the non-leaf part. So just like we did with the March, we're going to trim it off the side. Now, I'm attaching this one down here so that it appears that it's all one branch, but it's really not, okay? And you can move it around a little bit, or when you put your flowers on. That is what is so awesome about this Close to My Heart adhesive runner, because it gives you a little time to adhere it down before it's a permanent thing. Now this one I want to drop down a little bit. So I'm going to do that one like that. And then I'm going to do the long one. I did a beautiful, beautiful layout with the cherry blossoms kind of in a wreath. Many of these pages were actually inspired by scrapbooking pages and combinations that I came up with. And I will actually link those at the end of this series so that you can go back and see what the layouts look like. Well, it's not all of them, but most of them I did. Okay, so now I have my branches where I think I want them, but I'm not going to cut them off yet. I'm going to leave them there for wiggle room, okay? So then we come to the flowers. And so what I did with the flowers is I just held them in my hand, did my adhesive runner over it, and attached it to the same size. Now, I am not concerned, I don't know if you can see that in the zoom in or not, but I'm not concerned that those meet exactly, because I think it gives it more shadow. I also tried really carefully to make sure that I flipped over some of these flowers. So some are on the light side, some are on the dark side, and some of their bases are on the light and dark side. Now, if it bothers you, you can line these guys up perfectly and not have anything showing on the back. That is possible. You just have to keep rotating it until you find the perfect match. But truthfully, I'm really not taking the lazy way out. I really liked a little bit of it exceeding because I think that gave it more character and it looked more realistic. Okay, so I'm gonna bring in all my little flowers again. This is probably the, well, I don't know if this is the most time-consuming page, but it is a very time-consuming page. So feel free to pause, get your flowers done, and then come back and join me. Okay, so with the bigger flowers, these guys, I think, if I remember correctly, yeah, barely cover. So you can use that if you tuck it and you position it a little bit better, or you can use the small one. So I'm going to show you how close it is. It's a pretty close deal. So I'm actually going to opt for the small ones, which are these guys. And I popped up almost all of the flowers. There's a few that I did not. So we're going to start down at the bottom, and I'm going to do 3 big ones up this branch. Again, you're going to have some depth whether you pop it up on foam or not, because you're climbing over that branch. I'm going to do one kind of in the center and then one up farther. Now the one up farther, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my glue because I'm going to make sure it stays down and doesn't pop because it's uneven. And I'm going to put that one there. Now I want my little leaf to show, so I'm just going to pull it down a little bit. Okay. So then we have 3 little baby ones. So I'm going to do this one flat. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, the baby ones will pop up, but we'll check. It's been a little while since I've done these. Yes, it's just a perfect fit. Okay. So this one's going to go here. And I need to pull one back down a little bit. So I'm going to put that one on foam as well. And pull off the film. I don't want to cover that full little leaf, so I'm going to drop that one down a little bit farther. Okay, so then up here, we're going to get the big ones. I'm going to put foam on the back. And again, you can mix it up however you want, but I'm going to start here. Now on this one, I have my branch a little bit farther apart, so I'm going to scooch it over. And it's going to kind of be the connecting point. I'm going to do this one over here flat. This is on our Flower Market Cricut cartridge. If you want to cut out more flowers, or if you want to reproduce this idea in something else. I think, I always say this is my favorite, but I think my all-time favorite, close to my heart cartridge, is Flower Market, because there's just so many things that you can do with the flowers. And anyway, I love this one. So this one on this branch, I'm going to pop up like that, and then we're going to come down this branch here. We're going to do the same thing. I'm alternating some of them so that there's depth. And I think that way it looks more realistic. So I don't know what it was like last year with the virus and everything else going on. But when we went, we took our kids, and I was terrified the whole time that someone was going to knock them into the tidal basin, because there were so many people at the cherry blossoms. They usually tell us when they think peak is going to be, but then if you wait too late, a storm could come and knock them out. And it had stormed and stormed and stormed that year, and it was the first nice day we had had in a long time, and I think all of Washington, D.C. and Virginia went that day. At least it felt like it. But it was breathtaking. My girlfriend Barb lives up near D.C., and she said to go on a weekday. So I think we will try to do that this year if we're allowed. Okay, so now we're going to do this one. And I have 1, 2, 3. So I feel like maybe I made too many of the little guys, but that's okay. Could use them somewhere else. Now, on the calendar page, you will notice that at the very bottom, there's 3 down here. So this is the only page I think that I used 1 narrow glitter instead of 2 narrow glitters or a wide glitter. And that was so that those 3 little cherry blossoms could go there. And so likewise on the 6x8 album, my thought is to take these and put them down here, whether I use the glitter paper or not, but put those 3 extra ones down there. Okay, so now I'm looking at it and I'm liking the way that I have it. I have these are a little bit more crowded, but there are 3. There's 4. I guess I do have 1 extra, but I'm okay with that. So I'm going to wiggle it over, and I'm going to flip this card over and trim. Oops, those shot across the room. So there's not as much stem showing on this one, I guess, but that's okay. Okay, so just like that. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna spell out our word April. And these I just did with my tape runner. And just make sure that, I might need to drop it down a little bit. You wanna make sure before you get them all on there that they're all gonna fit. And then you don't need to shuffle things around. So there's the APRI. It's a pretty close fit to the edge. So just like that. Okay, so I have my A. And when I do these, I typically don't press everything down. So I typically leave it extended, kind of like that, until I get them all into position. Make sure that they all fit. And then if I'm happy with where I've got them, then I go ahead and press them down. And that way, whoops, that little R popped there. if you have to shift it and relocate it, there's less likely of a chance that you're going to tear your under paper. Because it would totally be a bummer if you've gotten all this work done and then it tears because your eye is too low or what have you. Okay, and the last letter is the L. So I felt like that the word April needed to be grounded. I am good with that, so I'm going to press those down. And it's handmade, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But I felt like it needed to be grounded, and so that's why I decided to add this extra piece of shimmer or glitter paper. So you can go all the way to the end like I did here, or you could outline the word April and just go underneath it. That's totally up to you. I liked going to the end because I feel like it brought the focal point a little to the side. Oops, I think I want it a little bit closer. Okay, so now that that is all done, then you get to do the final touch. And this I love. So this is the diamond Stickles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and just do a little dot. Maybe. Looks like my nose clogged. Might have to grab another one. There we go. And I'm just doing a tiny dot in the center of each of the flowers. Now you are in control over the size of your flowers. If you squeeze a lot, then you're going to get more. If you squeeze a little bit, you're just going to get a little. Okay, so I'm doing the center of every single flower. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and just do another triangle. So there's one there, and one there. So there's that triangle. And then I'm going to do it just as accents. Another triangle there, okay? And that will dry. It looks a little bit high now, but as it dries, it'll sink a little bit. And that is your finished April page. Screw on my lid, press down my letters a little bit. Now this one I would not put something to weigh on until those stickles are dry, but if you're finding that your letters are not staying down as well as you want, then you can add extra adhesive and then put something heavy on that to weight it down once your stickles have dried. So here's the long version, here is the short version, and now you are finished with March and April. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, of course, you can email me at inallsassiness@gmail.com. And otherwise, have a great night, and whatever you do, make it sassy.